Today we're going to recap Week 10 of the college football slate and preview Oklahoma versus Iowa State, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college related, sports related. We have a good time, and today I'm going to recap the week that was college football. I know that it was a week slate, but I enjoyed it and I had a lot of good times with it. We're also going to talk about number 9 Oklahoma versus Iowa State at home. I'm going to get to that. I want you, please consider it. Just consider subscribing to my newsletter. I'm giving away this bad boy here to somebody who is subscribed to the newsletter. I understand that everybody's not into an OU lamp for their own personal use. Maybe you just want to give it away at a dirty Santa party, or you want to give it away to your favorite Texas fan to troll them, or your favorite Oklahoma State fan to troll them. Mostly, I'm just looking for your email address. And not even the primary one. The one that you use for coupons, okay? The one that you use for your Hotmail, all right? The one that you use the one time for that 20% off, and then you forget about it. Maybe you'll get locked out of it. And for those of you that want to give me the email account that you actually check, probably end up winning this lamp, because I'll probably try to send an email to somebody being like, yo, yeah, won this lamp, and they won't get it. And then 24 hours will go by, and I'll send it on to somebody else because they got locked out of their account because they don't check it. Subscribe to the newsletter. I would appreciate it. There's a link in the doobly-doo below and in the comments. Okay, let's talk about football. For the first time since 1996, the top 3 teams in the AP poll were all on a bye Felicia. But LSU, Alabama, and Ohio State were not alone. They were joined by AP top 25 teams, Penn State, Oklahoma, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and San Diego State, who all decided not to work this weekend. In the game of the de facto game of the week, de facto game of the week, SEC officials gave number 8 Georgia 2 phantom catches in the world's largest cocktail party. One to Lawrence Cager that set up the first TD of the game 3 plays later, and another where Brian Herrien appeared to make and then not make, and then apparently make a catch that's up for catch of the year. UGA was outstanding in pass protection, particularly against the blitz. Florida ran just 20 offensive plays in the first half. Both QBs combined for just 209 yards passing for the first 2 quarters, but Jake Fromm came out on top. He completed 18 passes for 250 yards, 20 passes for 250 yards in the 24-17 win. Cager had 7 catches for 132 yards, or 53% of their passing production. But Florida, baby, your game is making like LeBron James's hairline, just keeps receding. But at least we don't have to hear Dan Mullen's name in earnest anymore this season. West Virginia decided to go all out on Halloween and terrorize Baylor quarterback Charlie Brewer. The Mountaineers put him in a brown paper bag 7 times, but that wasn't nearly as scary as West Virginia's offense. The Ears averaged 18 inches per rush. I am not kidding. Memphis dispatched SMU with extreme prejudice as Antonio Gibson showed Shane Buechele and the Mustangs what the Blues are all about. This is a magnificent display of a public school sticking it to a $71K a year, cheated so badly they banned you from football private school, where the two combined for 1,067 yards of offense and 102 points. If it would have been included on the UFC 244 main card, SMU Memphis would have won fight of the night. Appalachian State decided to make me look sillier than Pennywise in Miss Universe pageant with a 24-21 loss to Georgia Southern. The Eagles rushed for 335 yards against the Sunbelt Mountaineers to, ruin any chance of awarding itself a fake national title, which wouldn't make it any different than 1945 Oklahoma A&M. It's a shot at you, Oklahoma State fans. Central Florida whipped Houston like it had a 3 p.m. matinee to get to. The Knights held the ball for just over a quarter, 18 minutes, 29 seconds, and put up 44 on Dana Holgerson, who might want to give Tilmer Fertitta's shut up and listen a read if he doesn't feel stupid enough already. And then there's this bit of news from Yahoo Sports' Pete Thamel reporting there's little chance that D'Eriq King will return to Houston. Tamil reported King is expected to enter the transfer portal in the postseason and will garner interest from top programs like LSU, Georgia, and Florida State. Note, LSU will need to replace Heisman favorite Joe Burrow, and the 2019 Cougars still have games left against 7-1 Navy and 8-1 Memphis, both of whom are ranked. Houston's administration claimed they would and then fired a coach for finishing 8-4, Major Applewhite. Houston is 3-6. Let's see if they'll fire a coach who finishes 4-8. K-State put up 10 fewer points on Kansas than it did on Oklahoma, which is the best argument to keep an OU out of the playoff I've heard yet. Boise State still isn't one. Michigan beat down Maryland 38-7 in the Bama Co-Coordinator Bowl. What had happened was the Terps head coach Mike Locksley tried to shade Michigan offensive coordinator Josh Gaddis at Big Ten Media Days this summer when he said Gaddis had the benefit of watching him call every play at Bama last year. And as if that L on Saturday wasn't enough, Locksley caught one early Sunday morning from channel commenter Corey Karhoff, who wrote, "Imagine talking mess about Josh Gaddis when you're 6-37 as a head coach." We got body snatchers in the comments of this YouTube channel. Somebody arranged for Locksley's immediate homegoing because your man's done killed him. Good on you, Corey. I love the commenters on this channel. Nebraska lost to Purdue, which is a big perdon't. Also means Huskers got beat by the third best team in the state of Indiana without All-America wideout Rondale Moore and by a walk-on quarterback. Like, it's so bad that there was a Dom Whaley bit to this. Aiden O'Connell's name isn't even spelled correctly in his bio on the school's website. Didn't stop him from leading a train over 82 yards in 12 plays where he went 6-6 to beat Scott Frost's Huskers. Now, Frost is like a mechanic who's looking at a crumpled beer can of a car and saying, "Nope, I can fix that." In a week that felt more like a lull for most, Willie Taggart's number hit in the head coaching dead pool. We all thought it was really funny when the child of a Florida State booster built a lemonade stand to raise money for Taggart's $17 million buyout. From the mouths of babes, we find wisdom. Or flat stupidity, depending on how much you live and die with nose football. But the fact is, Taggart was fired a year after leading FSU to its first losing season since 1976 and breaking a streak of 36 straight bowl appearances. Now, Jimbo Fisher walked out of FSU's house after essentially setting the place on fire. But when you're 9-12 through 21 games, something's got to give. This is especially true when folks have talked themselves into a man who signals in plays with white tape wrapped around his fingers. This also means the odds of D'Eriq King ending up in Tallahassee just got that much shorter. But I might add, Jason Candle, Alex Grinch, Mike Norvell, and Matt Campbell all have what you need, Florida State: integrity, confidence, competence, and W's. Oregon dispatched USC and more than likely Clay Helton as Trojan head coach with, yes, extreme prejudice. With a single loss to a top 25 Auburn squad and games left against Arizona, Arizona State, and Oregon State, the Ducks just need to make like Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein of Gelderland and stay on the horse. And they'll probably get a shot at Count Adamar, but it's much more likely to be looking up at the college football playoff from the flat of their back. Wow, I stretched that Knight's Tale, didn't I? Wake Forest beat NC State so badly, The Athletic didn't even cover it. I just shot at The Athletic's coverage of Wake Forest and North Carolina State, and it wasn't subtle. The 44-10 win was the largest margin of victory for a Deacs team since 2002, when Wake beat North Carolina 31-0. Jamie Newman, a.k.a. store brand Cam Newton, has passed 2,000 yards passing this season, becoming the first Deacon quarterback to hit that mark in 7 games. Glade Clausen's boys are going to be a handful next year. Utah beat Washington for the first time in the Utes' last 5 attempts and are 8-1 for the first time since 2015. The Utes held Washington to just 53 yards rushing, including 1 damn yard in the second half. What's more, Tyler Huntley outplayed Jacob Eason, which is as close to beating Georgia as the Utes are going to get. Auburn beat Ole Miss. And this is normally the place where I'd make the but who hasn't joke, but then that would make California and Vandy feel, well, exactly like the failures they are. Cincy squeaked by East Carolina with a late field goal in a game where Pirate QB Holton Ahlers passed for 535 yards in the worst performance by a Cincy defense since getting snut stomped 42-0 by a bunch of nuts. Clemson skull-dragged FCS Wofford in a show of strength that rivals the power team, ripping phone books in half. Travis Etienne rushed for 212 yards, which is 6 fewer than the number of yards Trevor Lawrence threw for, while the offense racked up 702 yards to the Terriers' 256. Wofford got $360,000 for that beating. Hopefully, the Terriers don't spend it all on hospital bills. All right, now let's preview Oklahoma versus Iowa State. Okay, so there's a lot of different angles that we could take when talking about Oklahoma hosting Iowa State on Big Fox at 7 o'clock on a Saturday night. The first one is, not a whole hell of a lot of people are going to care about this game in the way that OU fans, particularly Cyclones fans, are going to care about this game because LSU and Alabama are playing on the same weekend, and they're number 1 and number 2, and they're both in the SEC West, which shows you the strength, or at least the perceived strength, of the Southeastern Conference. But that said, for Oklahoma fans, this is going to be about Alex Grinch versus Matt Campbell. This is going to be about the two guys that came out of Mountain Union together. One of them came an All-American defensive end, transferred in from Pitt after watching a bunch of Mount Union players jogging down a highway and deciding that was the kind of football he wanted to be involved with. Matt Campbell, my goodness, dude, does he ever just understand who he is? Because it's a different kind of cat that says, no, I want to join a football team where they just run down a highway together. And it also tells you a lot about what these guys felt about Larry Karras. And Alex Grinch's adage to this was, look, I understood what it meant to be recruited to play football at Mountain Union because Larry Karras did not mince words. He made it really simple for you to understand. He said, look, you want to come play football here? Imagine dragging your knuckles on concrete. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot. It's going to hurt for a long time. But eventually, it ain't going to hurt again. And by the time it doesn't hurt again, you're going to be able to punch the concrete and crack it. That's the kind of guy that Larry Karras was, and that's the kind of players that he coached. And I don't think it's a coincidence that two of his most famous pupils coached in the Big 12, and the other one, head coach at Toledo, should be getting a Power 5 job any day now. Matt Campbell, Jason Candle, Alex Grinch, all outstanding coaches. I'm particularly interested to see what it's like for Alex Grinch to go up against Matt Campbell, who is very much involved in the offensive play calling, as John Heacock is very much their defensive coordinator who has beaten Oklahoma. And that's the other thing. The last time that Oklahoma played Iowa State at home, the last time Iowa State traveled to Norman, they got a W against Baker Mayfield in a year where Oklahoma not only made the college football playoff, but Baker Mayfield won the Heisman Trophy. They're perfectly capable of coming down to Norman and getting a W when nobody expects them to do it. The difference is this year they're not really sneaking up on anybody because for the last 2 years, they've been a sexy pick to win the Big 12 and have been picked by me, at the very least, to finish at number 3 in the Big 12 in a conference that has gotten way better because Kansas State, Kansas, and even West Virginia are ready to fight you. And Iowa State is having to deal with some of that too. But even as they're having to deal with that, Brock Purdy is still growing up and maturing, and he's becoming really, really good. This is the third best passing offense in the conference, not the country, in the conference. And Deshaunte Jones is awesome over there at wide receiver. You're going to need Parnell Motley and Trey Brown to have outstanding games against those wideouts. Charlie Kolar at tight end is going to be a handful because if you try to line Delaren Turner-Yell up on him, Delaren's just too small and Charlie will sun him. If you try to make perhaps Kenneth Murray Jr. run with him, I don't know that he has the hips or the coverage technique to run with him. So Charlie Kolar probably ends up being a problem for this Oklahoma defense just because physically they just don't match up. That's the long and the short of it, man. You don't really have anybody that you trust to do the job. I mean, the guy that I would even think about putting in this position right now is Ryan Jones. And what Alex Grinch has wanted to do with him in the past is actually line him up in like a 5 technique and have him rushing the passer in a 3-point stance. And as a guy that came up playing wide receiver in high school, played safety to start at Oklahoma, and then came down to play some Sam linebacker and then some Will linebacker, now plays like a jack rush end. I'm not sure that that's even on Alex Grinch's brain to even think about right now what he's going to do with Charlie Kolar. So there's your matchup nightmare in a game where tight ends in college football are really your last versatile aspect of your game across the country. Now, we know that Lincoln Riley does a lot with fullbacks, the H-back, but folks use tight ends to block, and they use them to flex out, and they use them to get matchup nightmares. That's why Rob Gronkowski was such a big deal in the NFL. Travis Kelce has some wiggle to him. That dude fits right in with what you're thinking about when you talk about superstar tight ends. We all know that Zach Ertz out of Philadelphia is also amazing. Mark Andrews of Baltimore. I keep going on here. And I think Charlie Kolar, who comes out of Norman, by the way, can give you some problems now in I believe it's his 3rd year at Iowa State. And Breece Hall, in the backfield has really taken over that running back spot for Iowa State. And I've been high on him for a very long time because it's quite simple. Marcus Hicks was the number 1 player to come out of Kansas last year. He ended up committing and signing to Oklahoma. He's going to redshirt this season, dealing with some hamstring issues. Defensive tackle is going to be really, really good when he gets an opportunity, he gets healthy, because he's already standing about 6'5", about 275 running around. Breece Hall was the number 2 recruit in Wichita, and not just Wichita, in Kansas. Man rushed for over 2,000 yards last year. Dude could absolutely play some football. And I wondered when they were just going to give him that job. And apparently they still wanted him to take that job. And now he's a problem. Because if you get him out on the edge, it's not just that he can outrun you, it's that he'll run through you. Right now, I feel like Kenneth Murray Jr. and Deshaun White can tackle him, put him on the ground. But I'm not sure that anybody else can, just based on what I've seen out there. So you're going to want to actually try to put him on the ground, just like you would anybody else, but he's going to present some problems for you because he can catch the ball out of the backfield, and Kenneth Murray Jr. is going to trigger every time he swings out. I get that, but that means you got one-on-one on the outside for the most part, because Grinch is going to line up in this quarters defense and have these guys play man in the secondary and just try to bully you, and I'm not sure that you can do that against this passing offense that is getting better and better each week. Now, they got beat by Oklahoma State, and they showed what they're about against Oklahoma State, but they also threw the ball a bunch. And I think that Purdy is still growing, he's still maturing, and maybe this isn't the week where he gets over the top against the top 10 team in Oklahoma, but he'll certainly get after you. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to find him throwing for over 300 yards. Might take him 50 attempts to do it, but I'm certainly could see that, especially if they're playing from behind for a good amount of time. Now, defensively, we all know that John Heacock can absolutely make problems for a Lincoln Riley offense, because he did. They'll run that, they call it a 4-3, but it's more like a 3-3-5, because in passing situations, they'll put 3 men on line of scrimmage and they'll run this umbrella 8 coverage where they'll just drop 8 back. I think this is the game where Riley's really going to have to game plan for his running backs. He's going to have to hand the ball to them, because you're going to want Heacock to force his front 7 to stay in the front 7. You're going to want him to drop at least 1 safety, not 2 safeties down into the box. You're going to want them to respect the run. And I don't mean respect Jalen Hurts running the ball. I mean respect the gap scheme that Bill Bedenbaugh has drawn up. Run guard tackle counter. Run some lead stuff. Run some really, really intense, we're going to big boy you and man football you, because getting away from rushing for 275 yards a game is not helping your offense. Now, I get that against Kansas State, Oklahoma was playing from behind, and you got to throw it, and they know you got to throw it. But a lot of that was because you didn't hand the ball to the running backs early, especially when you had a lead. When you're up 10-0, when you're up 17-7, that is the time to start giving the ball to Kennedy Brooks and Trey Sermon. And I think against this Iowa State defense, you're going to want to do more of that, because Mike Rose is really, really good, and you're going to want to wear him out early. Same thing with Greg Eisworth. Get him coming downhill. Don't let him be the guy that's going to be standing back there. Get one-on-one opportunities for CeeDee Lamb. Get one-on-one opportunities for Charleston Rambo. You be able to stretch the field with your tight ends and hopefully getting Grant Calcaterra back. But even if you don't, Lee Morris or Austin Stogner, that's going to be there. But you got to be able to to get on Ray Lima early. That is an outstanding defensive lineman for Iowa State. You're going to want to put two bodies on him and push him around, wear him out. This game gets harder for Oklahoma the longer it goes where the score's close. It's not unlike Kansas State in that way. Matt Campbell and John Heacock know exactly what they're doing and exactly what they want to do. And if you allow them opportunities and if you allow mistakes, they can beat you just like Kansas State beat you. They're similar in that way. They're fundamentally sound. They're not going to beat themselves. They're not going to get pre-snap penalties. They're not going to make stupid fouls. They're not going to put the ball on the ground. That's all stuff that you're going to have to correct if you're Oklahoma, because those are all things that you did. You had pre-snap penalties. You had boneheaded penalties by guys like Parnell Motley, who decided to do a Mortal Kombat move on the sideline because he got a cheap shot. You can't respond. You can't get these offsides penalties. You can't get false start penalties. You have to play with composure. You can't put the ball on the ground, Jalen Hurts. You have to game plan for Trey Sermon, Kennedy Brooks, TJ Pledger, and Ramondre Stevenson. You have to give these guys opportunities to help you. I think if Riley has been diligent in his last 2 weeks of preparing for this game, because remember, Iowa State has had 2 weeks to prepare for this game as well, then it'll be okay because you have more talent than Iowa State does. But the more I look at the game, the more I think that, yes, it's cool that you get to play at 7 o'clock. It's cool that you're on Big Fox. It's very cool for recruiting, and you're going to try to get as many guys down here as possible for one of your final home games. And this is Military Appreciation Day for Oklahoma, so you're going to have a really good crowd. But you have to be able to take Iowa State out of it by running the football, because you know that you're going to have pass plays. You know you're going to get chunk yardage. Oklahoma still leads the country in yardage per game at damn near 600, 598 yards per game. UCF's averaging 551, so you're good half a football field ahead of the next best team when you talk about total yardage. Still throw for a ton a game, like 338 through the air. Jalen Hurts is averaging over 400 yards of offense by himself. He's going to get what's there. What I really want to see is Lincoln Riley take these chances, these opportunities, these choices out of Jalen Hurts' hands and just dial up some run plays, man. Stop with it's not even that you run a lot of run-pass option. That's not what Oklahoma really does. It's that you're giving him options. And in giving him options, he's going to go through his progressions. And if he's got a wideout or a receiver open, he's going to hit him. If he's not going to dump it to a running back. He's going to take off. Because that's what Jalen Hurts does. Where Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield would say, I'm just going to dump this off to Trey Sermon to Kennedy Brooks and let them get the yardage. Hurts says, no, I'm a better option. I'm going to take off running. And he might be, but it's not helping your offense. It's not helping everybody get in rhythm. This is why people rail against the Houston Rockets last year. James Harden, great scorer. Depending on how you feel about the flopping, great scorer, can get to the line, whatever. But when it talks about getting the offense involved and doing this game and making this game about rhythm, yeah, it's not cool. It's not a fun thing to play with. You don't want to just stand there while another guy plays. And that's what Jalen Hurts is doing. It's the reason why in baseball they say pitchers, pitch to contact. Get guys into the game, because when the team is playing well and when the team is touching the ball, everybody succeeds. And you also make the defense really worry about what you're doing and worry about everybody that's out there playing, as opposed to let's just key on Jalen Hurts because he's not going to dump the ball to anybody else. So you also make the game easier for your quarterback to digest. I think these are all things that Lincoln Riley is thinking about and has put into his game plan. And I understand that there's other X's and O's things that you can think about where you want to take advantage of where you think the weak link is on this defense. For me, it's cornerback. Try to get one-on-one opportunities. And for that, I would make it simple. I would compact my offense. I would bring in big personnel, put one-on-one on the outside, and see what the safeties do, right? Because if I have one-on-one on the outside on the numbers, and I know that I got two safeties high, I know I'm open in the middle of the field. And even then, I still might hand the ball to the running back just because I believe that Oklahoma's offensive line can out-duel Iowa State's front seven, and then you force those two safeties down, or at least one of those safeties down, and then you truly have one-on-one on one side of the field because the safety's going to try to take deep middle third, and he's going to bail depending on where he sees the quarterback's eyes going. So if Jalen Hurts has some good eye discipline and can move that safety around, it's a wrap, right? I mean, I know that this is easy to say and it's harder to execute, but that's what the game is about right now. It's about, can you put them into positions as a defense where they don't want to be? Because the defense is going to try to spill the ball east and west and then fly to it and make tackles and get strips and fumbles and try to get the ball back for the offense. As far as Alex Grinch, I expect to hear him talk quite a bit about coming up with Matt Campbell. I expect to hear him talk quite a bit about their friendship and what it is they do talk about. Probably not going to get a whole lot out of him about that. Probably not going to get a whole lot out of Matt Campbell about that. I know that because I asked Matt Campbell about it at Big 12 Media Days. Big 12 Media Days this summer. And he was cool, right? But he didn't really divulge anything. He just said, hey, we talk about stuff. We don't really talk about football as it relates to our organizations or our programs. We're friends, and we've been friends for a long time because we've been teammates for a long time. And they've had a lot of fun watching each other succeed and excel. I'm excited to watch this game because I think it's going to be a great X's and O's game, and I think that it's going to be the kind of game where we get to see if Oklahoma can make adjustments on its defense, what those adjustments look like, because now there's a blueprint for how to beat this defense schematically. Not just big boying it, not just saying, hey, we're going to out-hustle you. No, there are holes in Alex Grinch's defense that need to be filled. Now I want to see how he fills them after getting out-coached for the first time in his career at Oklahoma. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Doses.